Hi, Dave Smith here from DJS Photography, continuing my series of videos to demonstrate black and white photography, right the way through from loading the camera all the way through to making prints. What I'm going to look at today are just some examples of stand developed negatives. Generally, when we learn about black and white photography, we learn that developing the negatives is a fussy, precise process. It takes quite a lot of time. You have to stand there agitating, you have to measure temperatures, you have to be careful about the amount of developer, and I think all of that is stuff and nonsense, quite honestly. And coming across stand development really reinvigorated my black and white photography. So I want to share that with you and show you the quality of the negatives that are available from this process. I use two developers. I use Rodinol, now renamed Adinol since Agfa went bankrupt. The formula was bought by Adox and is marketed now as Adinol, and that's what I use. Lasts forever, even when opened, so you don't need to use it up. It's a one-shot developer. There's no problem with it at all. Very, very easy to use. I use that for roll film. I shoot in 120, but also 35mm. And remember that a roll of 35mm is the same surface area as a roll of 120 and the same surface area as a sheet of 8x10 film. So I use 5mm of Rodinol. I don't care about the dilution, whether I'm shooting a 35mm film, which requires less liquid, or I'm shooting 120, I still use 5mm, but I put it in the appropriate amount of liquid. Now for me, shooting medium format, that's 500mm. That might be less if you're shooting 35mm, and would depend upon your tank as well. But whatever it is, make sure that you use the least amount of developer. What we want is for the developer to become exhausted through the process. So 5mm, and that's in Adinol. And what I'm going to do, I've got my iPad here and it's set up as a pretty simple light panel, and I'm going to put various negatives. I'm going to put negatives out of my Fuji GX680, and I'm going to put negatives out of the Fuji 645, and I'm going to show you negatives from 8x10 sheet. Now when I do 8x10 sheet film, I use Moersch Tanel. Moersch Tanel is a two-part developer, and I use 3mm of each part, so 6mm in total. Again, I'm looking to use the minimum amount, and for both of those, Adinol or Moersch Tanel, I suspect I could even use less developer than that, but those are the quantities I use, and it works perfectly well for me. This is the first set of negatives that I want to show. Comes out of the Fuji GX680, and I think everyone would agree, incredible negative. Great contrast range, very sharp, nicely developed, well exposed, no problems at all with that negative. I see no reason not to use stand development from a negative that looks like that. That negative will print perfectly well, probably on grade 2, although I will print it on platinum or carbon transfer. Here's a strip of negatives from the Fuji GA645ZI. This is my walkabout camera. I take it pretty much everywhere with me, and I mostly just use it to record things that I see. This particular strip, however, was a trip I took out to the Cimetière d'Ixelles, cemetery near to where I live here in Brussels. Very famous cemetery actually, with incredible architecture and sculpture all around, and a section for war graves as well. So a very important place. But just back to the negatives, again, stand developed, Adinol, 5mm in 500ml of water. And here's a 10x8 negative, stand developed in a flat bottom tray. Very important the tray is flat bottomed. This is an X-ray negative, by which I mean it's shot on X-ray film. X-ray film is coated on both sides, and this is a very crisp negative. Just let me waken that up again. Great tones, nice range of tones, nice contrast. No problems here with stand development. And remember, this is Moorish Tannoll, for which I use 6 mils, 3 mils of part A, 3 mils of part B, in this time a litre of water. So I'm not interested at all in the dilution of these chemicals. I'm interested in making sure that I use the least amount that I can get away with so that the developer runs to exhaustion. I think this is quite difficult to see on the video because the pixels on the iPad are creating a little bit of moire, I think. But nevertheless, I'm going to try. I've put this negative on because you should be able to see striations running roughly from top towards the bottom, reaching about 3/4 of the way down. Those striations, I believe, are caused by bromide drag, and this happened in this particular negative because I was testing the amount of agitation that I needed, and I was trying out a very small amount of agitation very gently, and it clearly didn't work. And when I went back to my much more vigorous agitation at the half-hour mark, the striations disappeared. Bromide drag is a bit more likely on roll film as the developer settles from the top of the tank to the bottom under gravity. Bromides being a byproduct of development, those bromides get dragged across the film and you see them as striations. I don't see that in my roll film development because I do agitate at the half-hour mark quite vigorously. On this particular negative I was trying more gentle, and it's pretty clear to me it doesn't work. But I did want to show you bromide drag because I want you to see what the pitfalls of stand development can be, but it is dead simple to overcome. You just agitate sufficiently at the halfway mark, or at half-hour intervals. If you're going to stand develop for say 2 hours, I usually use an hour, but if you're going to do 2 hours, then you want to do it roughly every half hour. And once again, this is at the West Burton Waterfalls in the Yorkshire Dales. Another negative on X-ray film, no problems here with this. Very contrasty, punchy, sharp, well exposed, well developed negative. There'll be no problem printing this, and again shows the excellent quality available from stand development. Why everybody isn't using stand is a little bit beyond me, to be honest, because it's so much easier, so much more convenient. Okay, so I think that you have seen from that the quality of negatives that you can get. You often hear of stand development that the tendency is to reduce contrast because the highlights and the shadow regions develop very differently. They use the developer up differently, and because you're using the developer to exhaustion, then you get complete development in both of those areas, and the tendency then would be to crunch those tones. I don't find that. I find my negatives are full of contrast, perfectly usable, no problem at all. Your mileage may vary, you can judge for yourself, but I hope that these examples have shown you just what's available with this process, and it's way simpler than anything else that people will tell you to do around developing black and white negatives. If you like this, hit the subscribe button and see what else I'm showing. I'm doing a vast series of videos to cover the whole process of black and white photography. Thanks for watching.